Art is too important not to share. Welcome to the Allie and Callie Artcast.
Hi, I'm Allie.
And I'm Callie, and we're with the Coeur D'Alene Arts and Culture Alliance. Hello, everyone.
Hello, everybody. Here we are sitting at the chamber looking out at the lake again on this pretty summery, sunny day.
It's gorgeous out, by the way.
Yes, it is.
It's been hot, but hey, eventually it won't be.
Right.
So
let's enjoy it while we got it.
Let's enjoy it, and let's not complain, people.
Right.
It could be worse. It could be snowing or icy.
Exactly.
And then we're complaining about how cold it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, so let's stop.
No complaining.
Let's enjoy the day.
Yes. Okay.
Live in the moment. That's my thing for the day. Live in the moment.
So because we've had such hot days, I've been taking my walks really early in the morning.
How early?
I got out at 6:45 this morning.
Okay, I was up.
I walked yesterday. I walked 5 miles.
Oh my God, good for you.
Today I walked 4 1/4 because I had a little hitch in my giddy log.
Oh no, why?
I know. I don't know, but I would say it's probably because yesterday I walked 5 miles and my body said,
too many.
Okay, take a break.
That's too much. You got to settle down. Simmer down now, Allie.
That's right. That's right. What's going on with you?
Let's see. I worked on my little art studio piece for the tour because I had one piece and I decided it's not enough for the little. Is it 8x8 or 6x6?
6x6.
I don't know why I can't remember that, but
the
anyway.
little 6x6 collector's edition.
Okay, so I have a little extra 6x6 plus 4 more little 4x4s.
Oh,
so
fun.
mine is a little set.
Oh, cute.
And they're going to be awesome.
Oh, I love that.
So I was just feeling like I needed more.
Right.
I have a little problem with it's not enough. I need more. So anyway, I've been working on that, and trying to deal with the heat with resin is difficult. So I'm just saying right now. So I might have to move my studio when my kids move out of my basement down to my basement.
Oh.
So I have some cool
When's that going to happen?
Maybe never, but it's all right.
I kind of suspected that.
Oh, and I have a grandma update.
Grandma update.
Okay. Baby's coming January 22nd.
January 22nd.
Yeah, so
a little earlier. Than predicted.
So it's coming.
I have a
soon.
grandma update too.
You do?
Yeah, I haven't seen Hendrix in almost 3 weeks, which is
that's
really
a long
killing
time.
me. But yesterday was my son's birthday, and I drove up to Sandpoint to have lunch with him because a mom just has to do that.
Yeah.
And Byron informed me that he started talking a little bit.
Oh.
And I'm like, no, I want to hear that little voice.
Yeah.
So I'm going to have to make a point of getting over
there.
there.
You have to go visit.
I know, but it won't be till next week because we're going to Canada this weekend.
That's right. You're busy. You're a
I
busy
am
lady.
Busy, but anyway.
Well, that's exciting news.
It is exciting. And you know who we're going to see this weekend?
Who?
The John Welch Band.
Oh, you are? I love that band.
at the Wapata Festival in Fernie, BC.
That's so fun.
I know, I'm excited.
That's great.
Yep. So speaking of music, we have a great guest today.
Yes.
Scotty Dodson is here. He plays, and he's the Sandcastle Man. Welcome, Scotty.
Hey, welcome. Thank you very much for having me.
Oh my gosh, he's the Sandman.
The Sandman.
I love it.
Yeah, that's one of my monikers. But,
yeah, right.
I love it. I love it. How many years have you been doing that? Building the sandcastles at Art on the Green.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, this year will be the 24th year that I've been there. So a long time. I started 1998. Was the first castle.
Wow.
I've been doing them ever since.
That's so cool. So tell us a little bit about yourself and what got you there.
Yeah, well, like everybody, I started building sandcastles on the beach when I was about 4 years old, and but I just never stopped, and I just kept going. And so I'd always go to the beach and be fascinated with sand and the way that it was able to be sculpted. And I was a big guy with little matchbox cars and corgi cars, creating little cities for myself. So I just kept doing that. And then in my 20s, when I'd go to the beach with my buddies, and we'd all go there, and obviously they'd be hanging out and doing things, and I'd just be building the sandcastle. So they just got better and better. And then finally, after a couple of years, I started to get hired by local beach resorts in the Hamptons on Long Island, where I'm from. And they were places like Gurney's, and some of the upper class resorts out there and condominium projects would hire me for the day to come in and build a castle on the beach for them, for their people, their guests to come and watch me build and stuff like that. And then that morphed into bigger projects where I was hired by different companies. Like one was Beck's Beer was a big sponsor of mine, and we had there was a place called Summers Beach Club in Quag on Long Island in Fire Island and the beach areas, and they hired me every year to come in and build like a 4 or 5 day gigantic castle, and we bought a bulldozer on the beach and pile these huge piles of sand. And then I did that for a number of years, and then finally I decided to leave New York back in 1990, and it just wasn't a good place to raise my family. I wanted to get out to somewhere new, so I found Idaho, and I came out here, and I thought that I'd pretty much be leaving sandcastles behind. But then I discovered I could put the sand in big wooden forms and pack it in and get really tall, and these massive like pyramids of sand. They were up about 13 feet tall, about 8 feet at the base. And then I went to Wild Waters, which was still in the business at that time.
Right,
and they hired me to build a castle for them in their parking lot. I was like, this is great. So I did that. And then after that, it was a couple of car dealerships. And then after that, it became more like some conventions and trade shows and state fairs. So I did the Washington State Fair. I did a bunch of conventions for different companies around the country. So they'd hire me to go and build a castle at their booths at these trade shows. And that all became kind of a 4 to 5 unit thing a year. I do them. These things take about 6 days to build, and they take a lot of work. So then I basically just kept doing that, and I did a bunch of those. And then recently, since 2015, I've got involved with some of the bigger major resorts in the Caribbean. And so you might have heard of Sandals, is a big resort place down there, Beaches. And so they started to hire me to come down and build castles at their resorts. So they would have a convention or a group of, a big thing coming in, and they would hire me to come down. And so basically I'd go down there for like a week or two and build a gigantic castle for them at their facility. So I've done a bunch of them for Sandals and Beaches. I've done one for Carnival Cruise Lines in Roatan. I've done a couple other ones around. But Beaches has turned into a real good steady gig for me, and they bring me down. So this month in August, I'm going down to Beaches for a couple of weeks, and in September I have another gig down there for a couple of weeks building castles. So they just fly me down, they put me up. I can't say it's a huge money maker for me. I'm not getting rich off of any of this, but I do get the satisfaction of doing my art, and they bring me down there for free. They put me up at the resort. They usually swap me out a couple of days for every day I'm building. They give me another free day to stay there.
Oh, wow.
So I'll build for 6 days, and I'll get 12
a little
or 15.
vacation.
Yeah, and it's all-inclusive, huge, beautiful resort, so I have no complaints. So I get to travel around and do all of that kind of thing. So today, I'm actually doing the Pound Up for Art on the Green this week. Pound Up means is when I take all this, I get like 28 tons of sand delivered.
28 tons?
It's two of the largest dump trucks you see on the road. They both come in and they dump their sand.
Oh my God.
And then I have to shovel that into those wooden forms I talked about earlier. With water, pack it down. I have my sons help me typically, and we spend a couple of days just taking this big mound of sand and making it into these, pounding it up, we call it, wetting it down so it can be carved out. And then so I've been doing that the last couple of days, and I'll start carving today for Art on the Green, which is this weekend.
Right.
And so by Thursday, it'll be looking pretty good. And then, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, I'll build through the show so people can come and watch me actually create these Gothic medieval cities out of sand. And that's where I'm at, so that's what I'm doing right now.
That's amazing.
Do you plan your castle ahead, or do you just create it on the spot?
I usually just create it on the spot. I mean, usually the whoever wants me, they'll give me a logo, and so I'll be planning to put a big logo somewhere in the sculpture.
Oh, right.
But then the rest of it is just kind of a free flowing architecture, usually like 14th century medieval type of stuff. Turrets and staircases and arches and big buildings and stuff, and trees and things like that. So it just creates a big Bavarian countryside, basically. And then out of that, that's what I do. So I let that all just flow. I don't plan any of that.
Wow. I've seen your castles over the years.
Me too.
At Art on the Green. And of course, I checked you out on your website, scottydodson.com.
Yeah, and then the Sandcastle website is sandcastlesinparadise.com.
Oh, sandcastlesinparadise.com.
Yeah, and yeah, that's my my Sandcastle website.
Oh, okay.
And so there you can see all the work.
Right.
Of everything. That's probably but anyway.
Yeah. Right, because scottydodson.com.
That's the music
That's
website.
your music
website.
See, he does more
Yes,
than
I
just
knew
sand.
that. Right. And we're going to talk about that in a little while.
Yeah.
But I'm fascinated with this whole sandcastle thing. So it's like you're creating like this little enchanted world.
Yeah.
It is, yes. It's a fairy tale world, and people always say, is that Hogwarts, or is that something out of Lord of the Rings, or what are you fashioning it after? And it's really just all of those things put together. But it's basically 13, 14, 15th century, architecture. And I just keep doing the same thing over and over again, just creating a building with a staircase, with a road, with a tree,
Right.
and just grows like a little, like a Tonka toy set.
Oh, wow.
Or like Legos.
Yeah, right, like Legos.
So what's the hardest part that you have to deal with when you're building your sandcastles?
Well, the hardest part is, besides pounding up the sand, which is very physically entangled, but that's really not the hardest part. The hardest part for me is emotionally hoping that nothing falls down.
Oh, yeah.
I was going to ask you about that. Have you had any major...
Yeah, I have, collapses, and wherever I go, the sand quality is so important. The better the sand quality for what I'm doing, the better for the castle. And sometimes I get put in places where the sand is just not good at all, and sometimes the sand's really good. And even here in Coeur d'Alene, all the mason supply yards, they have sand, but they all have these weird characteristics to them. So usually the best sand is on the beach. Is on the beach sand. Actual beach sand is really super good because it packs up, it stays, it drains properly, all that kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah.
And I build them with a lot of vertical on them height. So they'll be 8 feet at the base, but they'll be up 12 feet tall. So I have to make sure that it's packed really well. And so the hardest part, to answer your question specifically, is the very top of the first castle, and I take off these wood forms that I packed it down. I want to take that off, and I got to really, make sure it's going to stay. And then I just, carve that out. Once I'm off the top layer or the top 2 tiers, then things really solidify pretty nicely. I know that I'm safe, and then I can start having fun.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, right. So it's a little stressful.
Yeah, it's a little stressful up there. And I'm getting a little older, and my balance isn't as good anymore. So I'm up, 8 feet off the ground on these little pieces of wood, trying to be artistic and hold, the sand all stays together. It can get a little weird that way. And then also when I go to the Caribbean, I don't use the forms. I just use the beach. And at the resorts, at the Sandals and Beaches, they usually have areas that have really, large, really nice sand in the beach. So they give me a crew of guys. They give me like 5 guys, local guys that are from the islands, and they come in and they just work with me, and they basically just shovel this gigantic mound, and then we pack it with water just by hand. So they're not quite as tall, but they end up being a lot longer. So they'll be 35 feet wide and maybe 9 feet tall, and then all carved out. So that's the way those go.
And I imagine that you always have like a little crowd that gathers, that watches the whole process.
Yeah, there's typically, there's always people interested in what I'm doing. I mean, Art on the Green is great because they're kind of forced into that art festival.
Right.
So there's lots of people at one place looking at art. So that becomes a big crowd pleaser there. And I've been doing that for so long that I've got literally generations coming back. I mean, I've got kids bringing their kids back.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah, it's really, really cool. And but on the beaches, sure, you get a lot of people coming by. It's just a really wonderful feeling when I'm just building these things. And I've had people get so emotional around the castles. I don't know why, but and maybe something's going on in their lives that are just really like, and then they come up to me and they're like, you just answered my question, like I'm not sure what your question was. I spent 2 months in Maui about a year and a half ago. I was there just on the beach, just building on myself, and me and my wife Terry were doing that, and they were so like. They have so much gratitude that I would come there and I spend all day building this huge city in the sand. They'd never seen anything like it, and it was just a really wonderful, experience. So I get a lot out of it in that regard.
Sure.
Hey y'all, it's Jason from Tubbs Coffee Roasters. We are North Idaho's specialty coffee roaster. We are homegrown and we are local. We love coffee and we love our community, especially Allie and Callie and Artcast. We have a retail space in our roastery in Hayden, and we can also be found on the shelves at Super One and Yolks. And if you like to buy coffee online, we do offer subscriptions. You can find us at tubbscoffeeroasters.com. Support arts and culture and your local roaster. That's all.
So besides the castles, which are so fascinating, and we could probably talk for another hour about sandcastles.
And we might come back and talk some more.
Because it is magical.
It is.
And I think that's why people get emotionally attached to it. There's something about castles.
Yeah.
I don't know.
There is something about castles.
I know. Because even when I was in Europe, I mean, every castle, even if it was like in shambles, you're still like, God, that still exists.
Okay, I got to tell you one funny story.
All right, see, we're back on it.
So we were in a castle in Ireland. Mm-hmm. It's the Dromoland Castle, which turns out to be like super expensive. Mm-hmm. And it's really a 5-star hotel that happens to be inside a castle. But anyway, it's a real castle. It was built in the 17th century. And we're in the turret, which they turned into a little bar because you had to wait to be let into dinner. And I'm sitting in the turret at the bar, and I get a glass of 36 euro champagne, which is about, at the time, was probably about, no, I think it was 18 euro a glass champagne, which was at the time about $32 a glass.
Ooh.
And I picked up my glass and I told all of my friends that I was with, I said, while we're in the castle, you may refer to me as Alexandra.
See, that's what it is.
Yeah, anyway. Okay.
Something about
so that was a little side note. Let's get back to the subject at hand.
So you play music.
Yes,
So
tell us about your music.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm a musician. Music is actually my number one thing I really love. I love the castles, obviously, but the music has always been where I've been putting my most energy into emotionally, and working at it and trying to get better. But I've been playing guitar since about the 11th grade in high school, and I picked it up, and I've just always been kind of a closet musician for most of my life. I did play a little bit in bars and clubs when I was like in my early 20s, but then life kind of takes over, and you end up, I had a family and a business. I joined the real world, and I was just a member of society trying to make ends meet and live,
right,
and raise my children. But I always played music. I kept going back to that. I would always go home at any free moment. I would just sit out in the backyard and play all my music. And I always wrote my own original songs. So for years, I was just a closet, my own original guy. Then about 5 years ago, my wife came up to me and said, Scott, you should really learn other people's songs because that's what a lot of people like to hear. And I said, and you have a point there, and so
those wives,
yeah, and because we
it.
go out camping or something, I'd be around the campfire and I sing my own song, but nobody else.
They can't sing along;
right.
they don't know the words.
And all my songs are really good. I love them, but then I started to just go and start learning a lot of songs. So I spent the last 5-6 years just really pounding out learning all these beautiful songs that were my favorite songs from my childhood. So I generally play songs from like the Eagles and Bob Dylan and the Beatles, and
the best.
Everything back from that like late 60s to early mid 70s genre period where that Southern rock was came into its, infancy, and really, really good stuff. So that's what I do. So I learned the songs, and I really started to really enjoy playing them. And so now I have a full entourage of music. I do 3-hour sets are really not a problem. And so I do a lot of the bars around town. I do play at the Riverstone, where you'll have me in a couple of weeks.
August 11th.
Yeah, August 11th at Riverstone. I'll be opening for a band called New Jack City, which is one of my favorites of all time. I love.
It's gonna be so fun.
Yeah, New Jack's a Motown band,
right?
And they're just a fantastic a collection of music that they do. And in my world, I'm just a guy on an acoustic guitar, but I do some Motown music. I do Dock of the Bay and some others that I really enjoy. And it's funny how music flows, from the blues into Motown. So Johnny Cash is doing the same chords as they're doing maybe in some of the songs in Motown, and it's really all connected, and it's all the same thing, and it's really about finding the spiritual part of the music, their harmonies that just come into you. So music is really something that you do out of the heart, not out of the mind. And so when I'm playing, I'm not thinking about it. It's just I'm just grooving on that's the sound I can create. So so I pick the guitar. I'm a finger picker, and I'm a what they call flat pick, which is like a plastic pick. I do both of those, and I do a lively set of just all that music that I love. Plus I throw in my originals here and there.
Right, I love that. I wish we had you bring your guitar. You could have.
I know, we should have play.
Yeah, you could have played.
But you could go to his website. I bet you have some on your website.
Oh yeah, I bet you have.
Yeah, ScottyDodson.com has a bunch of music you can click and listen to.
Take a peek.
And I have a lot of originals on there. I have some your standards, stuff.
Yeah, but that's where you could listen to your originals.
Yeah, absolutely.
Unless you happen to catch you around town, like at Riverstone next Thursday, or are you playing Art Walk?
I might be doing that. If I can, I will do that. And I think there's those come up. But I do some bars and stuff like that. I'm like Mulligan's up there. I'm at Studio 107 last Friday night. I've been at Seasons. I've been at a number of places. The winery up in Sandpoint. Did some shows in Spokane. So I've become pretty active in it. But music's a whole other thing that you have to prepare for. You have to practice.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, it takes a lot of dedication because I have to continually hone my skills on the guitar and my voice. I have to make sure it's working and everything like that.
Right.
And so it's just a lot of it's become a full-time job just being me, just trying to keep up with the stuff
I like
want
that. Relate to that.
I love that. It is a full-time job. Woo.
Yeah, but it's fun.
That is. Yeah.
Who's your favorite artist? Like, who's your favorite musician that you can?
Well, there's a number of them that have really grown into. I love. The Beatles have always been really
they're my number one.
I really love what they've done to music. They brought it from the bebop period into this wonderful place where they're using chords that they've never used before. These minors and these augmented chords. On all their really great songs. So everything past say Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, everything north of that has been really special to me. But Bob Dylan and his lyrical genius has been one of my favorite artists of all time, and so I follow him a lot. The Eagles have been amazing, and then Jackson Browne and Billy Joel.
I love Jackson Browne.
Yeah.
I feel like he does not get enough attention.
No, he's lived in the shadows of music for really his whole career.
Good.
And he lived in the shadow of the Eagles for a long time. He wrote some of their greatest songs. And he could have been a member of the Eagles. They were all friends when they were just buddies and basically started getting going in LA back, when.
Really?
And they knew each other before they were famous. And Glenn Frey always thought that he was one of the greatest songwriters of all time, and Jackson Browne was. And but then beyond that, I get into James Taylor. I do like Little Feat, but I get back into some Johnny Cash,
right?
And Nitty Gritty Dirt Band, and it's a cross between like bluegrass and then regular Southern soft rock, and then and then I do Otis Redding. I do a little bit of Wilson Pickett, things like that. So I kind of. Right. But those are all. Every song I do is is one of my favorite songs.
Right.
I don't really do songs because they're somewhat
A crowd
popular.
pleaser or whatever.
Right.
But I picked the favorite songs of my life, and every one of them has kind of a meaning to me.
Right.
Yeah.
And so when I play them, I'm playing part of my life. It's my story.
I love that.
I have friends who do, sing on a cruise ship, on a riverboat. They said,
right.
And the people.
That's Laura. Laura
yeah,
Sable.
Laura,
We interviewed
Laura and
them
Bill, and
last year.
they said, "Oh yeah, people call out, sing Poker Face," and she's like, "No, thank you." It's like there's a shush,
Right.
no, sing what you love.
Yeah, for me, requests are not. I don't really do requests.
I think,
basically, I have about 50 songs, and I'll give you the list. And
that's a good-
anything off that list, I'll do a request.
That's a good
if
list.
It's on the list.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But songs are so. I got to play a song like 100 times before I get it from my brain into my heart and my soul, and that transition takes a while. It
Right.
takes. I just can't look at us because I play by ear. I'm not a musician that's going to school and all that. So they all got to get into my heart, and then I sing them my way.
Right.
Yeah.
It's kind of like my version of that particular
No,
song.
it's great.
Hey, ladies, have you heard about NIA yet? Hi, I'm Marilee Wallace. I'm a proud board member of the Coeur d'Alene Arts and Culture Alliance and owner of NIA. That's short for the North Idaho Alliance. We specialize in leadership development, specifically focused in connecting women to programs and workshops and the network to educate, empower, and enrich their lives. Our goal is to make positive impacts in our community while helping other women in North Idaho succeed. Next up is our Women of Impact Leadership Roundtable series and our Women with Cool Jobs event. Those are both kicking off in the fall, so I hope you'll look us up. You can find us on Facebook at Women of Impact CDA or just give us a call at 208-660-1557. Go out and make it an impactful day.
So let's get back to the sandcastles, the magical sandcastles.
Yeah.
I want to hear some stories from you about some of your favorites and.
All right. Well, I've got a lot of favorites. In fact, everyone.
I'm sure they're all your favorites.
They are. Every time I do a castle, my goal is to do the best castle I've ever done. And I get kind of obsessed with it. And my wife and my kids, and I know people think I'm kind of wacko because I just get really, really into it. I mean, because when I'm doing a castle and I'm actually, I'm in a zone. I'm in a place that I rarely get to in life of serenity. Even though I'm nervous and I might look like I'm like wigging out sometimes, I'm really just in the place I know I'm supposed to be, And it's wonderful. So my favorite castles, though, Art on the Green has been a wonderful thing for the last 24 years. And every one of those has been really special. I did one in 2015, which was like a double castle. And I did some other ones. They were really wonderful ones. But I have to go back to back on the beaches on Long Island. I used to do the Beck's Beer Sandcastle, and they would bring out. There was a place called Summers Beach Club on Long Island, so it was a real rock and roll, like spring break type atmosphere. They used to bus all the people in from Brooklyn and Queens out there. It's like an hour and a half drive, on a bus, and they bring them all out. There'd be hundreds of these just wacko Bedford-Stuyvesant 20-year-olds running around and completely, drunk off their, really, really crazy on that regard. And then I'd be out there with my buddies. I get like 5 of my friends, and we'd be camping out on the beach right in front of this beach club. And on our first one, they brought in the owner of the place, this guy brought in a backhoe, giant backhoe on the beach. He said, okay. He said, show up on Saturday or Thursday, whenever the day was, and we'll bring the backhoe on. So we're there, and me and my friend Mike Jones, who's my buddy back then, they piled up this huge pile of sand with a backhoe right on the beach, just grabbing the sand and putting it up. And they had this sand pile up about, it must have been up 20 feet. Wow. It was really huge. And then, anyway, at that time, we were there, and then all of a sudden, 2 police car jeeps roll up with their lights on and they get out, the cops get out, and they say, what are you doing with a backhoe on the beach, Yeah. It turned out that the environmental restrictions were very strict back there, and you weren't supposed to have a backhoe on the beach, digging up these giant piles of sand. Anyway, so the cops, they were there, and they were just telling us back and forth, get the backhoe off the beach, fill up the hole. You can't do this. And they finally left him. And the owner of the beach, this guy named Sam, comes up to me and he says, just why don't you guys just leave? I'll take care of this, And so me and Mike said, okay. So we kind of just left that afternoon, and then we came back he said, come back the next morning.
Right.
So we came back the next morning, and the beach was all combed in really nice, except there was this huge pile of sand there. and he said, go to work. We got it all figured out. Don't worry about it.
Wow.
And so we went, and then we created the very first Beck's Beer Sandcastle, which was this big, gigantic thing this was 1987.
Wow.
And that was a lot of fun doing that castle. And so we spent, 4 days there on the beach carving out this big, gigantic thing in the midst of everybody. And then after that, we did one every year for the next 8 years.
Wow.
And he would always say, don't worry, just come back. Come in the morning, and we'll have your pile of sand
ready.
So they would just go on there at night and build and put up this mound, and then have it ready for them.
Oh, funny.
And so that was a good times. Like I said, a lot of the convention I've been to have been. There are a lot of work when I go do one at a convention because, like I said, I have to make sure they've got the proper sand, and then we have to put up these wood forms and everything. And I used to have to have lumber and tools. And I did one just before COVID hit. I was in New Orleans, and that was the week that COVID, integrated American society, and they started shutting down all the basketball games and everything like that. So I started the week in normal society, and walking around, no mask, no mention, everything was fine. And then I did that where I had to do the mound of sand, and they got the boards, and we got all the sand up there, and from a local supplier, which was all really difficult to do in downtown New Orleans at the convention center.
Right.
But then by the end of the week, COVID was hitting big, and everyone was like, they're canceling flights, and everyone, and so the whole thing changed. And by the end of the week, I was basically like the last one out of town on my jetliner, and the hotel was closing down, and they were telling everyone to go home. So I just built this big castle, but it really didn't. A lot of people didn't see it because
they were gone.
They were gone.
It's over.
Of course, there were stragglers there and people, but it wasn't like a lot of people.
Yeah.
And so I basically built this castle, for me.
Yeah.
Right. Another one was last year in February. We went to beaches in Turks and Caicos, and I was doing one for the group 98 Degrees. They were doing a reunion concert.
Oh.
And so I came in, of course, a week before to build the castle, and they were going to have a big concert there. And so anyway, I went there. I built this beautiful castle. It was 35 feet tall. It had a big 98 Degrees logo in it. And then the band members got COVID, and they never showed up.
Oh, dang it!
Yeah, and I was like 3/4 of the way through this castle, and the people came up to me that have the resort, my coordinators, and they said, Scott, the band's not coming. I'm like, so? And they're like, well, you can stop. You don't have to build the castle. And I'm like, I'm not doing it for them. I'm doing this for me.
Yeah, right. Why stop?
And I just kept building and building and building, and it was great. And the guests that were there all loved it, and we had a great time.
Yeah,
and it was wonderful.
Wow.
And so they never got to see the castle, but they did hire me. So in 2 weeks, I'm going back to Turks and Caicos because we're doing the reunion concert this year.
Oh, good.
So we're going to be doing that. So I'll be building a whole other castle in a couple of weeks down in Turks and Caicos.
And hopefully
you can say there's still 98 years.
Yeah, Nick Lachey and his group.
Oh, that's
fun. It'll be fun. They probably won't even, they won't know me, but but they did want me back.
That's nice.
Oh, that's cool.
That's good.
Yeah.
Good.
So did you study architecture?
Well, I always loved architecture, like I said, and I did want to be an architect. That was one of the things I wanted to do in college. But when I got in there and started getting into the hitting heavy, the math and all that kind of stuff, I realized that it really wasn't, it was more like a math job than anything. And I kind of swayed away from that into more like the liberal arts direction, which is more my style.
Yeah.
And not that, I would have loved to have been an architect, but I didn't go that way. But I always loved architecture. In fact, my thesis for my at the end of my first 4-year degree was was Roman architecture in sand, and so I went to the ocean. Wow. I would build these Roman artifacts in sand. So I did like Hadrian's tomb, and I did the Parthenon.
Oh wow!
And I did these all out of sand. I took pictures, and I had this big expose of these things in sand. And
my God!
I talked about all their dimensions. So that was my senior thesis in college. But then I never went on to get the degree in architecture.
And then you said you have your kids. They help you out. Do you think they're going to follow in your footsteps?
No, I don't think they'll follow me like me, but they do help out a lot because I got 2 sons, and so they grew up their whole lives, involved in the sandcastle thing, and they've been to so many of them. So, but now they're my diggers. They come in and they help me pound up the sand. So they've been over here for the last couple of days, pounding up the sand and all that kind of stuff. And then they do show up here at Art on the Green. My sons show up and help me build. They do a lot of stuff, trees and stuff like that. Yeah. And my one son is going to Turks with me in a couple of weeks. So
nice.
We're going to go over there, and he's going to help me build the one in Turks and Caicos.
Cool.
So they do get into it to some degree, but and you never know. Maybe they'll catch on.
You never know. That's fun.
So I know that you were raised by your mother, Lillian Dodson.
Yeah, Lillian.
And Lillian is one of the artists in our studio tour, our upcoming studio tour at the end of the month.
Yeah.
And tell me a little bit about the influence there, because I remember talking to her once, and she was saying how she and I assume it was your dad, were really big in the New York art scene.
Yeah, absolutely. My mom and it would have been my stepfather, Stanley Tortowitz.
Oh, okay.
Is the man you're talking about.
Okay.
And yeah, they were very prominent figures in they were both professors at Hofstra University, which is a school in New York.
Right. Wow.
And Stanley was a very, very formidable fine arts painter. So he was in New York City, many shows. He was on the cover of Art in America in 1958, which is a book that premiered the greatest upcoming artists. And he had a great career. And his paintings sell for a lot of money. Now they don't sell regularly, but when they do sell, they sell for quite a bit of money.
Wow.
And then my mother he was her teacher.
Oh.
And then my mother was a painter, and then so she did her thing. And my mother, though, eventually got into ceramics. And so my sculpturing, heels come from her ceramics studio that we had in our house. We had our whole downstairs, the garage, and then a big family room was converted into a gigantic art studio. And so she used to give lessons in there. So she'd have, every day there'd be like 5 or 7 people in there taking pottery lessons. So she did, she had like 2 or 3 kilns and a bunch of wheels and a bunch of, glazes, you name it. And so it was this ongoing thing. And she was with the Huntington, the name of the town, the Huntington Art League, and so she was involved with them, giving lessons for them in our house. And so I'd come home, from high school, and there'd just be clay there. And one thing I started to do is make pipes. I started to make these pipes when I was in high school. They were like head pipes, and they were these really cool little pipes, and I'd make hundreds of them. I'd sell them out of the trunk of my car to all the kids at school. And this is back in 1975, 6 and 7.
Right.
And so I used to put them in head shops, because that's when there were head shops. And it was just a world back there, and I used to sell these pipes for $2 a piece to all my friends. And there's lots of friends, and lots of parties, and someone needed a pipe for whatever they needed it for.
Yeah, right.
I would sell them a pipe. And so I did that for a long time, and then and that's all I did was the pipes and stuff like that. And then but my mom did her art career. She was very, very good. She just turned 91 this year.
Yeah.
And she's still, chugging along doing her art. She's over there painting. We have a studio in Dalton Gardens where she goes into every day. And I end up helping with a lot of stuff. Me and my brother, doing whatever. And she's a fascinating lady, because she's really taken her creative juices, and they keep her going. And it's like the fuel, you talk about you have to have purpose in life,
Right.
And she's got all this purpose and she's still I get over there, she's like, you got to help me do something, Scott.
Right.
I want to do this, I want to do that. And so I get a lot out of that from her, as far as, with my own art, with the music and the sandcastles. Just that, that's what keeps me going at this stage of my game. So,
Cool.
So it's been a great ride.
Yeah.
Art gives you life.
It does give you life.
I love that.
Art does.
I love
Art
that.
is one of the juices that really keep people going.
Yeah.
I agree. Yes.
And I mean, there's lots of things to do. I mean, could it be golf? Could it be hiking? Could it be all kinds of things? But in my world, it's always been the pursuit of creating a sandcastle or a song.
A song.
Love it.
Right.
That's it.
I love it.
Create a song about building sandcastles.
That's right.
I'll put that on my list.
There you go. Well, you can see Lillian's studio and probably meet everybody, because I believe that all of you were at the studio tour last year helping her.
Yep. Yep. That's coming up.
That's coming up the August 27th and 28th.
Yeah. So this year, I personally will be in Turks and Caicos.
Right.
But my wife will be there. My mom will be there. and
Yeah.
Who knows who else?
I have one of your mom's little plates on my counter every day. I put my coffee cup on it. I love it.
Yeah, she was known for building these really big things out of ceramic. She'd build these really tall pots, and she'd do amazing glazes on them. We've managed. She doesn't do the big ones anymore because they're just too big. But she was amazing at the wheel. She could just do these large wheel projects. Really, really big talent.
Oh,
Very
cool. Well, she's another person that's on the list for interviewing and
That'd be
bringing
an
on the
interesting
podcast.
one.
Yeah, I think so too. Because I've talked to her, and I love hearing her stories about her time in New York and how, I mean, she just went on one day about how people around here just don't understand abstract art, and I'm like, I'm totally with you on that one.
That's great.
Anyway, well, you can see Scotty in action this weekend at
That's
Art on
right.
the Green with his sandcastles, which will be really, really fun. And I'm sorry I'm going to miss it.
But I'll be there.
Callie will be there.
I'll
She's
be there
gonna
one of
take
those
videos
days
for me.
I will take videos.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
Great.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
And-
Well, thanks for being
And
here.
check out his website.
Yeah, so it's scottydodson.com is the music site.
And then sandcastlesinparadise.com.
Yeah.
is the sandcastles,
That's the
and you can go
So
see
check them out.
pictures of all of the
So
sand. And I
fun.
think there's some videos on there too of some of the process.
process.
Yeah, lots of videos and
Yeah.
all kinds
great.
of stuff on
Yeah.
there. I've done.
Well, it's fascinating, and you're
Love it.
fascinating, and I'm
love
so
that you
excited.
still have a little bit of your accent.
Yeah.
Yeah, where's my coffee?
Yeah,
Yeah,
where's your
where's your
coffee? I was trying not to catch it because it's so hard for me not to catch an accent.
Right.
I'm like, just don't do it.
Don't do it. Well, thanks again for being
All right,
here.
thank you.
Yes, thank you, Scott. Scotty, this was so great,
It
and
was great.
enjoy your music and all
We'll
your
see
creativity.
you next Thursday, a week from
Yes, at Riverstone
this week at Riverstone
at 6 o'clock.
at 6 o'clock.
Be there or be square.
Exactly.
All right.
All right. Well, I'm Allie.
And I'm Callie, and whatever you do today, make sure it's creative.
The Allie and Callie Artcast is a program of the Coeur D'Alene Arts and Culture Alliance and is sponsored by NIA, North Idaho Alliance, a women-based leadership organization designed to inspire, uplift, and impact your community and lives. And Tubbs Coffee Roasters, globally sourced, locally roasted coffee.